Good morning and welcome to Shiz Who, Hampton Road's top spot for politics. I know that the show has many different people and organizations that help it go, including, namely, my wife, Andrea Dixon, a great workforce developer with the state of Virginia. She founded the channel. Love you. Proud of you. Good friend, Mr. Seiko Varner over Positive Vibes. Does a lot of stuff for people, too. He also got me into podcasting, so look him up at 757-932-0177. He can help you out on many, many things. Also go to the Get On Code show over at Our Black Empowerment on YouTube, and he has great shows too. Good friend, my neighbor, Miss Ellen, owns Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. There's a location in Virginia Beach across from Regent, and a location in Portsmouth on Portsmouth Boulevard near Airline. Also good friend, Mr. Farley Perkins, with the insurance broker agency owner at Brightway Insurance. He can help you with a lot of insurance needs. And he also tipped me off to ELG Sweet Boutique, a great place in Portsmouth on High Street to get you some shakes or ice cream, confections, stuff like that. Now on to some more politics. We're coming up on the start of the second Donald Trump presidential administration. Yes, it fills me with a dread. There's a lingering depression. I feel less passionate about politics than I did before. I still wish to maintain an alertness to day-to-day politics, but I'm down on my zeal about it. Trump's win has thrown a lot of people on my side of the aisle, and albeit that side of the aisle is quite weird and wide, over into a tizzy. Take the recent news of a ceasefire in Gaza. It is a development I've been waiting for since late October 2023, when it was clear Israel's reaction to the October 7th terrorist attack was going to go beyond the response and into human rights abuse territory. The ceasefire was a development immediately set alight by Israel in bombings recently that killed some 80 Gazans after the ceasefire deal was announced. But I hear their cabinet has accepted the deal now. The ceasefire was supposed to be promising. It was to help end the genocide which existed alongside the long-term apartheid in Palestinian territories administered by Israel for decades. That genocide was so barbaric that it required U.S. policy to shift, to become proactive on a quest for peace and recognition of Palestinian and Israeli freedom simultaneously. It would require assertive and aggressive, if needed, communication with which the U.S. would not allow it being an ally to Israel to stop its role in following the Leahy Law. I don't know if you've heard of the Leahy Law, but it's named after former Vermont Senator and Batman film cameo buff Patrick Leahy. The Leahy Law forbid the United States government from administering military aid, money, and weapons to nations that were violating human rights with impunity. And one would come to a reasonable conclusion that with a Democratic presidency, one under the alleged good guy, Joe Biden, that the United States would get a good peace and help out the hurt that has happened on all sides. One assumes that because we as Democrats believe deep in our souls that we're naturally the good guys. By default, Republicans are the bad guys. It's a core part of being Democrat that we're pure. Every day after October 7th should show you that that isn't true. Just the other week, Biden sent Israel another $8 billion in military and financial aid. That goes with another 22 or so billion since October 7th, 2023. So that's damn near 30 billion. Remember, this is not a critique of Republicans here. I noted a family member on Facebook got after Biden for giving a one-time $770 payment to people affected by the recent California fires. The Post then criticized Biden giving billions in funding to Ukraine. That Republican Post called it disgusting. Now, I pointed out that, hey, he had just given Israel $8 billion. Where's your concern on that? I got back, good. I hope they target wisely. So we know from Republicans that this was just a post By the way, this was just a post under some pretty heavy Christian Republicans. We know that evil is not out of their internal worldview. We have to deal with that as non-Republicans. We have to do better ourselves. Israel has wiped out over 50,000 Palestinians in the process of this war, destroying over 60% of building and infrastructure in Gaza. It laid a siege and unleashed a campaign of starvation of Gaza since October 8th, 2023. And the U.S. cheered it on. It said Israel always had a friend in the United States and that the United States supports Israeli defense. So here's tanks, here's guns, here's planes, here's bombs, here's money. The entire genocide was facilitated by the United States proxy to Israel and a Democrat administration. The so-called good guys, they were at the helm. And most of it occurred during the heat of the 2024 presidential election. It was unpopular on Biden and Harris from the jump, but they persisted in supporting Israel. Polls went down. Primaries went through where 10 to 15% of the electorate showed up just to say not committed over it. And Biden and Harris persisted. Biden's mental faculties took a nosedive on live television across from the known evil quantity in Donald Trump, and Democrats rallied to force Biden out of the presidential race. As if this was something that couldn't have been done a year or two earlier. Or perhaps Biden could have owned up to his one-term promise that he made in 2020. Who knows? All I know is Kamala Harris torched Biden for his segregationist past on live TV in 2019, yet she had to leave the primary first, after now MAGA head Tulsi Gabbard torched Kamala on live TV on her California history with the justice system. Again, Democrats naturally perceived themselves as the good guy, and Joe Biden was the best they could come up with in 2020 when Bernie was right there. Genocide Joe. I called him that before. I have no qualms doing that now and in the future. He allowed this to happen. He wanted it to happen. I'll point out again, Ronald Reagan called the Israeli prime minister in 1982 and angrily told him to stop his assault in Lebanon or else they'd reorganize the ally agreement and stop weapons. And that assault stopped that day after that phone call. Democrats have all the reason in the world to be anti-Ronald Reagan, but Reagan was better on Israel than Biden by far. And when he left 2024's presidential race, Kamala Harris then had the moment to successfully distance herself and put up stronger Reagan-like terms with Israel, but she didn't. Much like when Kamala went on Club Shay Shay, and Shannon Sharp asked her about her past support for Medicare for all, and if she supports it now. She began an answer, and in half a second stopped herself to flatly say no, then supported a weak version of no one should be denied care if they can't afford it type of response. She was a major Democrat nominee at the time, and major Democrat nominees got bought by the health insurance industrial complex. So, of course, her no was going to be there. Just like in August when CNN's Dana Bash asked her if she can place any conditions on future Israel aid. Her quote was, "Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself, and that's not going to change." Harris began that reply suggesting conditioning military aid was off the table. That's the Israeli get out of accountability free card. She gave it to him. It culminated in what MSNBC's Chris Hayes has called a disgraceful legacy by Joe Biden. MSNBC's Joy Reid would point out after the election that it was a tragedy that some 19 million people who voted for Biden in 2020 either didn't vote at all or changed their votes. I'm one of them. The resistance stayed home, as Joy put it. The resistance is a euphemism for dealing with Trump and his presidency. But they're people with interests that could be served if the Democrats were decent alternatives. And at 24, they weren't. Even with Donald Trump as the Republican nominee. And it's all on the Democrats because they didn't want to deliver on systemic economic benefits to the people, and they decided genociding was okay. A YouGov poll tells us why. The poll was backed by the Institute for Middle East Understanding, IMEU, a policy project, and it was released on Wednesday. It showed that among the 19 million people who voted for President Joe Biden in 2020 but did not vote for Harris in 2024, nearly a third named Israel's U.S.-backed war on Gaza as the top reason for staying home. The top reason those non-voters cited above the economy at 24% and immigration at 11%, remember the economy and immigration weren't things they were strong on either, was Gaza. A full 29% cited the ongoing onslaught as the top reason they didn't cast a vote in 2024. Ryan Grimm reported that at Dropside News, the first outlet to report that poll. So right now, the establishment is pissed. Every person who yelled blue no matter who, or Trump is so much worse, they got their desserts. And the dessert was just. This message needs to ring in the ear with all the Democrats who care about a future. You have to want to deliver for the people instead of saying Trump is so bad. You know the 50,000 people that died at the hands of Israel and Gaza? Roughly 50,000 people die in the United States annually because they can't afford health insurance. All you have to do is support Medicare for all and make sure no American is denied the ability to have coverage ever again. It just goes away. 24% of the poll said the economy, and again, there was calls by the Kamala campaign to address grocery price gouging, but not on housing shortages and not on canceling student loans. They left many feeling disillusioned, Trump on a bad side and weakness on the other side. Then there's the 30% of the Biden voters who said Gaza's genocide was the reason not to vote for Harris. That's all the fault of the Democrats again. Genocide is such a human rights abuse that it's like passing the event horizon of a black hole. You can't really go back when you support it. Democrats should not have asked voters to accept a genocide or else Donald Trump, regardless if Trump supports the genocide himself. Democrats have to actually be good. You can't ask the voters to vote for the Riddler just because the Joker is the Republican candidate, especially if so many other good candidates exist, like Chase Oliver, whom I voted for, or Dr. Cornel West, whom my wife voted for, or Jill Stein, or Claudia de la Cruz, or Jasmine Sherman. And with this ceasefire, there are some who may claim it's Biden's plan, or that folks are delusional if they support Trump for this result. Sure, Trump was saying, let Israel finish the job. I saw it at the debate. I heard his speeches. That signaled support for Israel to keep genociding. But last week, Biden sent Israel $8 billion, and this week, Trump's Israel-Gaza envoy, Steve Witkoff, strong-armed the Israelis. Biden carroted Israel to some $30 billion in aid and stubborn verbal support of what they were doing. Trump said Israel finished the job, then sent his envoy to tell them to sit down, shut up, and take the deal. He sticked them. They said they all supported the deal anyway. So what does that tell you about Trump? What does that tell you about Biden? Were they incompetent in the Biden administration, or were they complicit? I say they were complicit. Remember, they still sent all the money, arms, and verbal support. And that's why they lost. Call me an idiot. Blame me for Trump winning. Say that we place Gazans over women and minorities, whatever the hell that means. I've seen that argument just this morning. Why did they throw women, minorities, and everyone else under the bus when those allies could have been working to change U.S. policies? Man, we've been telling you and others that Biden and Harris needed to stop it for a year before the election. Said no in November 2023, no in December 2023, January 2024, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Nothing changed about the United States policy, no matter what we threatened, and so the election happened. Democrats, you have to live in your own failure. Seethe in your cope if you must. We know how bad Trump is. That's not good enough. You guys have a good one.